top of the morning to you there. There have been a few questions come in over the board to get a little information about this AJS. Who on earth is AJS? Never heard of this motorcycle, said a few of the viewers. Clearly not motorcycle people. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Albert John Stevens, whose name bears AJS, and one of the great British marks that maybe you may have not heard of. But Albert John was the father. The Stevens brothers began to experiment with internal combustion engines at their father's engineering works for several years before finally offering the first AJS motorcycle for sale in 1909. Right after the start of the company, they were involved in sports, racing, trials, did quite well for themselves. AJS won the first Isle of Man TT, the 1914 Junior, then the First World War came, and consecutive Junior TT victories in 1921, and 1922. Also in 1921, Howard Davies, you may have heard of him relating to the founder of Vincent Motorcycles. Anyway, he was riding the 350 overhead valve AJS and became the only rider in TT history to win the seniors that year in the junior machine he was riding. Anyway, the company introduced the first overhead cam model in 1927, but let's speed up a little bit. The world came to a halt in 1929 when the stock market crashed. The world was thrown into depression, and a lot of companies, including AJS, couldn't make a go of it. They went into bankruptcy. Shortly thereafter, another motorcycle company, Matchless, picked up the remains of AJS and continued manufacturing AJS motorcycles along with Matchless motorcycles. This 1933 version here is the first of the AJS V-twins that used what was actually a Matchless engine. This is the same motor that was in the Matchless of the days. It's the same motor that was in the Bro Superior SS80, and it's the same V-twin motor that was used by the Morgan Car Company in some of their three-wheel Morgans. So that's a bit about AJS. The company continued on through the years, went through various ups and downs. The Japanese motorcycle industry came and rattled them all about in England, but nonetheless, AJS continued on as a mark until the 1970s when they were building two-stroke motorcycles that were very popular in motocross racing and the like around the world. So that's about all I'm going to tell you for now about AJS and the 33, you know. The idea of this project is not to do a cosmetic restoration, but to see if we can get the bike going down the road for its 90th birthday year. And we have managed to get the motor running so far. So next thing we'll do is be seeing if we can get it out of the basement and actually get it for going down the road for a ride. There are a few things that, you know, I'm keeping this as original as possible, but it would be nice to change a few things. Like you can see the original AJS logo here on the steering damper knob, but clearly the knob has been busted off. I was able to find a reproduction actually made in India. Unfortunately, it's short. It doesn't have the shoulder on it here, so I'm going to have to see if I can modify this to set up there like that. And you know, the tank knee pads are clearly really sagging and worn out, and these are John Bull knee pads, the AJS logo on them. It might be nice at some point, if these fall off, to have a replacement for them. So again, I was able to come up with these. So you got the John Bull on there and the AJS logo, and they'll clean up black. They've just got mold residue on them right now, but at some point I might change those out, but I'm going to keep these originals on there as long as I can until they fall off. You notice here the number plate, LV2750. Well, in England, when you register a vehicle for the first time, it's given a number, and that number stays with the vehicle. Unlike here in the U.S., where you go from town to town or state to state and year to year, and the number plates all change and they're all different. Well, this was LV 2750 with the LV standing for Liverpool. That's where she was registered for the first time. So it makes me wonder if Paul McCartney's grandfather might have had an AJS V-twin. Maybe this was his bike. I don't think so. I just made that up. But nonetheless, there she is for good. You can see what looks like a drip is actually like gum. The draining and flushing of the fuel tank was not enough to deal with the residue of the old tank liner that I had put in there 35 or 40 years ago. That once gasoline was introduced back into the tank, it all started to dissolve into a mess. And this is what we were dealing with. As you can see, it's not rust, it's like jelly. Everything was clogged up with this. So we're kind of back to square one. The bike started great, kick-starting it. It's like an eager to start bike, couple of kicks, a lot of compression it's a lot to kick over, but it fires right off. But anyway, it would run out of gas very quickly because all this junk in the fuel lines is clogging up the flow of gas. So the gas tank has got to come back off again. We're gonna have to try another process of cleaning this out. And I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to high school chemistry class and a little thing called electrolysis. You may remember. You take water and turn it into hydrogen and oxygen and separate the molecules by putting a charge of electricity. And doing that inside an old fuel tank is supposed to release all the junk from the metal. And we'll see how that goes. It's something I've never done before. Electrolysis. Ooh.